This video describes the RBT for EMAP configuration file. This is a plain text XML file that sits in the same folder as the RBT software. It sits alongside the software and gets read anytime the software is run, and it controls some kind of very high level settings for the software. It's different than the RBT input parameter file where you specify your data. Typically the settings in this configuration file don't change that much, so you can just set them once and then leave it. Having said that, there are a couple of things in here that are important to understand and that you can tweak if you want to change the behavior of the software. So I'll just walk through each of the values in here and give a bit of background explanation. So the first tag here is the precision format string. This is quite important. So the RBT for EMAP outputs a lot of metrics. These are typically numeric values, and this format string is used to control the output of those values. So you can change how many decimal places are output using this setting. There's a link on the website for the full range of values that you can use in this string, but I'll just say here that zeros and pounds are the key symbols. Wherever there's a zero, it's a mandatory output of a digit, and wherever there's a pound sign, it's the optional output of a digit if it's needed. So the default here is at the absolute minimum, values are going to get put out with one decimal place, and up to 4 additional decimal places if they're available in the data. So if there is no fifth decimal place, only 0.0 will get put out. But as soon as there is more decimal places, up to 5 will get output. So this is useful if you want more detail in the data. Just add more pound signs to the right of the decimal place here, and you'll get more out from the data. This is just a nice way that we can keep the output brief and tidy without putting out unnecessary digits. The max river width, cross-section standard deviation filter, minimum bar area are not used by the RBT for EMAP. They're used in other versions of the RBT, so you don't need to worry about those. The Thalweg pull weight is used, and it controls the sinuosity of the Thalweg. There are other videos related to the RBT that describe this value in detail, so I won't go into it too much here. Basically, a value of 0 will let the layout of the Thalweg pass down the channel and not attempt to get too deep into pools, so it won't get pulled side to side by the flow of the river. A higher value, 100 or more, will pull the Thalweg towards deep sections and pools in the channel, so you get a more sinuous Thalweg. And basically experiment with that value, and you'll get different Thalwegs. There aren't any units for that value. Basically 100 is a good starting point. The Thalweg smoothing tolerance is the units here are meters, and this is basically a post-processing step. When we finish laying out the Thalweg in the RBT, we smooth it using the standard ArcGIS Arc Toolbox geoprocessing tool for smoothing polylines. And this is the smoothing value that tool takes, and it's in meters, and we just use a default of 2 meters because that gives a fairly smooth, natural looking Thalweg. The bank angle buffer size is not used by the RBT for EMAP, and the error raster point density kernel is not used by the RBT for EMAP, so you don't need to worry about those. The last 2 values in this file specify basically how the RBT binds to your ESRI license. The first value tells it which product to bind to, and we default it to 100, which means it will look for an Arc Engine or Arc Desktop license and attempt to bond to that. If you want to change that and actually run this in a server environment, just change this value to 5. If you only have Arc Engine and you don't want to worry about desktop, then put it to a value of 2, etc., etc. The second value here is basically the license level that you want it to bond to, and the RBT does need an ArcInfo license for certain functions, so we default this to 60. If you don't have ArcInfo, you won't be able to do certain functions such as detrending and other advanced features in the RBT, and so you can change this appropriately to the license that you have available. But 60 is ArcInfo, and that is needed for several functions of the RBT. So that's just a brief look at the RBT configuration file. It's a plain text XML file that sits in the same folder as the RBT software. I've shown you it here in Notepad++, but you can edit it in any text editor of your choosing, Notepad, etc. Okay.